The red sun of Kepler 442b cast long shadows across the mining platform as Minute checked his workers one more time. The metal collar around his neck felt heavier today, like it always did when the Valdorian overseers were watching. He counted 23 humans in his crew, all wearing the same grey uniforms and the same control collars that kept them obedient. "Move faster, human," growled Overseer Vextar, his blue skin glistening with sweat. The tall alien had 4 arms and yellow eyes that never seemed to blink. "The quota must be met today or there will be no food." Minute nodded and walked to where his workers were digging. The ground here was rich with crystals that the aliens needed for their ships. His people had been digging these crystals for 3 years now, ever since they were brought here from Earth. None of them knew if they would ever see home again. "How much more?" whispered Taisu, one of the younger workers. His hands were bleeding from the rough crystal edges, but he kept digging. The collar would give him pain if he stopped. "Maybe 2 hours," Minute whispered back. He had learned to guess how much the aliens wanted each day. Too little and they would punish everyone. Too much and they would just make the quota bigger tomorrow. The mining platform sat on a cliff high above a valley filled with purple plants. Sometimes Minute looked down there and wondered what it would be like to run free through those alien fields. But the collar would stop him before he took 10 steps. It always knew where he was and what he was thinking. In the medical tent, Sojin was taking care of a sick child. Little Hannah had been coughing for days, and her fever was getting worse. Sojin had asked the aliens for medicine 3 times, but they always said the same thing. "Human medicine costs money," said Administrator Krelnox when Sojin asked again. "The child is small and weak. Not worth the cost. Let it die and we will bring more humans to replace it." Sojin felt her hands shake with anger, but she kept her face calm. The collar could sense strong emotions and would punish her if she got too upset. She had seen it happen to others who lost control. "Please," she said quietly. "The medicine is cheap. I can work extra hours to pay for it." The administrator's purple skin turned darker, which meant he was annoyed. "The human will work extra hours anyway. That is what humans do. The child will live or die based on its own strength. This conversation is finished." That night, Hannah died in her sleep. Sojin held the small body and cried as quietly as she could. Around the medical tent, other humans came to pay their respects. Minute stood in the doorway, his fists clenched so tight his knuckles were white. The next morning, they had to bury Hannah in the cold ground behind the workers' barracks. The aliens did not care about human burial customs, so they did it quickly before the work day started. Minute spoke a few words, but mostly they stood in silence. "She was 7 years old," Sojin said, her voice empty of feeling. 7 years old, and they let her die to save a few credits. Minute looked around at his workers. These were people he had known for 3 years. They had shared food when someone was sick. They had helped each other when the work was too hard. They had become family in this terrible place. "We are not animals," he said, very quietly so the alien senses would not hear. "We are human beings." Old Changsu, who had been a teacher on Earth, nodded slowly. "I remember when humans made choices about their own lives. I remember when we could speak without fear," added Kyung Minute, a former engineer who now carried rocks. That afternoon, while loading crystal containers onto the transport ships, Minute noticed something. The alien guards always stood in the same places at the same times. They trusted the collars to control the humans, so they did not watch very carefully. He also noticed that Jun Woo, who worked on the ship maintenance crew, had been studying the collar technology for months. The young man was smart with electronics and had been asking careful questions about how the control systems worked. During the evening meal, Minute sat next to Jun Woo and Sojin. They ate the thin soup and stale bread in silence for a while. "The collars have weak points," Jun Woo whispered, so quietly that only they could hear. "I have been watching the maintenance data. There are patterns." Sojin looked up from her soup. "What kind of patterns?" "The control signal comes from a central transmitter. If someone could get close enough to study it." Jun Woo left the sentence unfinished, but Minute understood. That night, Minute lay on his hard bunk and stared at the ceiling. Around him, 23 other humans slept the exhausted sleep of people worked beyond their limits. Outside, the alien guards walked their routes, confident that their human property was secure. But something had changed today. Hannah's death had awakened something that the aliens did not know existed in humans. They thought humans were just clever animals who could use tools and follow orders. They had never considered that humans might remember what freedom felt like. Minute touched his collar and felt its cold metal against his skin. For the first time in 3 years, He began to think about what would happen if that collar stopped working. What would happen if all the collars stopped working at the same time? In the darkness, other humans were having the same thoughts. The aliens had made their first mistake by letting a child die for money. Now 24 humans were no longer thinking about survival. They were thinking about something much more dangerous. They were thinking about freedom. 6 months after Hannah's funeral, Junwoo had learned many secrets about the alien technology. Every day while fixing their ships, he studied the collar control systems. The aliens trusted him because humans were supposed to be too simple to understand advanced electronics. They were wrong. Late at night, Junwoo would draw diagrams on pieces of scrap metal with a sharp rock. He hid these drawings under loose floor panels in the maintenance bay. Slowly, he figured out how the collars worked and more importantly, how they could be broken. The signal comes from 3 transmitters, he whispered to Minute Ho during lunch break. If we could change the frequency, the collars would stop working. But there is something better. The same technology that controls us can also hurt them. Minute Ho looked around to make sure no guards were listening. What do you mean? Their brains work differently than ours. The collar signal that keeps us calm would make them sick and confused. I can build a device that turns their own weapon against them. Across the galaxy on 17 different worlds, other humans were having similar conversations. The news of Hannah's death had spread through secret messages hidden in supply shipments and maintenance reports. Humans who had never met began working together toward the same goal. On the agricultural planet Verdes Prime, Hyjin managed 300 human farm workers. She had been a military officer on Earth before the aliens took her. Now she spent her days planting alien crops and planning something much more interesting. The guards change shifts at sunset, she told her trusted workers. There are always exactly 4 minutes when the North Field has no watches. That is when we move. Her people had been making weapons from farm tools for months. Sharp pieces of metal became knives. Wooden handles became clubs. Chemical fertilizers became explosives. The aliens saw only primitive farming equipment, but humans saw an army waiting to be used. Back on Kepler 442b, Junwoo finished his first prototype device. It was small enough to hide in his hand and looked like a broken piece of ship equipment. When activated, it would send a signal that shut down the collar network and attacked alien nervous systems at the same time. We get one chance, Minute Ho told his crew the night before their planned uprising. If we fail, they will kill us all. If we do nothing, we die slowly as slaves. I choose to fight. Sojin had convinced 12 other humans to join them. She had medical knowledge that would help treat injuries, and her gentle manner made others trust her. I watched a child die because aliens thought her life was worthless. Tomorrow, we show them what human life is really worth. The plan was simple but dangerous. Junwoo would disable the collars during the morning shift change when most guards were distracted. Minute Ho's team would take control of the mining equipment and use it as weapons. Sojin would secure the medical supplies and communication center. At sunrise, Junwoo walked to the maintenance bay carrying his hidden device. His hands were steady, but his heart was beating fast. Everything they had worked for depended on the next few minutes. Overseer Vextar was checking the daily work assignments when Junwoo activated the device. The alien's yellow eyes suddenly went wide with confusion. He stumbled backward, grabbing his head with all 4 arms. What is happening? Vextar gasped, but his voice sounded weak and dizzy. All around the mining platform, humans felt their collars go dead. The constant pressure in their minds disappeared for the first time in years. Some of them cried with relief. Others laughed with joy. But most of them picked up tools and started fighting. Minute Ho grabbed a heavy mining drill and smashed it into the security console. Sparks flew everywhere as the alien surveillance system died. We are free, he shouted, and his voice carried across the entire platform. The aliens were completely unprepared for organized human resistance. Their weapons were designed to control slaves, not fight soldiers. When the humans attacked together with improvised weapons and desperate courage, the aliens fell back in panic. Sojin reached the communication center just as Administrator Krelnox was trying to call for help. She hit him with a medical scanner, and he collapsed unconscious. Then she began sending a message to every human colony in range. This is Mining Platform 7 on Kepler 442b, she broadcast. The collars are broken. The chains can be removed. Fight now, while they are confused. Show them that humans are not animals. On Verdes Prime, Hyjin received the message during her planned attack. Her 300 workers had already captured the guard station and were destroying the collar transmitters. You hear that? She called to her people. We are not alone. Humans everywhere are breaking free. The uprising spread faster than anyone expected. Humans who received Sojin's message began their own attacks. Within hours, 17 different worlds were in rebellion. The aliens had scattered their human slaves across the galaxy to prevent exactly this kind of coordinated resistance, but they had underestimated human determination. By evening, Minutho's crew controlled the entire mining platform. They had captured 6 alien overseers and destroyed all the control equipment. More importantly, they had proved that humans could fight and win. Junwoo stood on the platform's edge, looking out at the purple valley where he had once dreamed of running free. Tomorrow, he would walk down there as a free man. But tonight, he had work to do. His device had worked perfectly, but it was only the beginning. This is just one small platform, he said to Minutho. The aliens have thousands of worlds and millions of human slaves. We need bigger weapons and better plans. Minutho smiled for the first time in 3 years. Then we will build bigger weapons and make better plans. Today we broke our chains. Tomorrow we break theirs. The galactic empires had ruled for thousands of years by keeping their subjects divided and afraid. They never imagined that humans could unite across vast distances or turn slavery into strength. Their first mistake was underestimating human intelligence. Their second mistake was letting humans learn their technology. They would not get a chance to make a third mistake. The rebellion spread like fire through dry grass. Every day brought news of more human uprisings across the galaxy. What started as desperate fights on mining platforms had grown into something that terrified the alien empires. Commander Donghyun had been a soldier on Earth before the aliens made him work on their farm planets. Now he stood in the command center of a captured Valdorian warship, studying star maps with his new officers. All of them had been slaves just 3 months ago. The aliens always attacked the same way, he explained to his team. Big ships, straight lines, loud announcements demanding surrender. They think showing force will make enemies give up without fighting. Yujin, who had been a factory worker, now ran intelligence operations from 12 different worlds. Her network of spies was made up of humans who still wore collars and pretended to be loyal slaves. The crystalline hegemony is moving battle fleets toward the Kepler system, she reported. They want to retake the mining worlds before we can spread further. Donghyun smiled. This was exactly what he had hoped for. How many ships? 47 heavy cruisers and over 200 support vessels. They are bringing their best commanders and newest weapons. Perfect. They are thinking like an empire that has never lost a war. We will teach them what it feels like to be surprised. On the agricultural world of New Series, Taiho was teaching former farm workers how to repair captured alien technology. The humans had learned something important. Alien machines were designed to be simple for their users, which made them easy for smart humans to understand and improve. See this power coupling. Taiho pointed to a glowing component inside a Valdorian fighter craft. The aliens made it foolproof because their pilots are not very creative. But if we change the energy flow pattern, the ship becomes twice as fast. His student, a young woman named Eunji who had once tended alien crops, nodded eagerly. Can we do the same thing to their weapons? Better. We can make their weapons work against them. Junwoo sent us the technical specifications from his collar experiments. We can build devices that turn alien ships into floating scrap metal. The news was not all good. The Valdorian Empire had responded to the human uprisings by destroying the colony on Proxima 7. 50,000 humans died when the aliens bombarded the planet from orbit. The message was clear: surrender or face extinction. But the aliens had made a terrible mistake. Instead of scaring humans into submission, the massacre made them angrier and more determined to fight. Sojin, now serving as a medical coordinator for the rebellion, broadcasted the images of Proxima 7 to every human in the galaxy. They want us to be afraid, she said in her message. They want us to remember that we are slaves who should be grateful for their mercy. But we are not slaves anymore. We are humans, and humans do not forget their murdered children. The response was immediate. Human uprisings began on 35 more worlds. Workers in alien factories started sabotaging production lines. Human servants in alien government buildings began stealing classified information. Even humans who seemed completely loyal started helping the rebellion in secret. Junwoo had established a hidden research facility on the asteroid mining station that Minutho's crew had captured. Working with salvaged alien technology and brilliant human engineers, he was developing weapons that the galaxy had never seen before. The aliens have been using the same basic designs for thousands of years, he explained to Minutho during one of their planning sessions. Their technology is advanced, but it is old and predictable. Human technology is primitive, but it is new and creative. His latest invention looked like a simple metal box, but it could disable an entire alien battleship. The device sent out waves that interfered with alien neural patterns, making it impossible for them to think clearly or operate complex machinery. How many can you build? Minute Ho asked. With the resources we have captured, maybe 50 units per month. But we need to test them in real combat first. That opportunity came sooner than expected. The crystalline hegemony fleet that Eugen had warned about arrived at the Kepler system expecting to face poorly armed human rebels. Instead, they found Donghyun waiting with a fleet of upgraded human ships and tactics they had never encountered. The battle lasted only 3 hours. Donghyun's ships moved in small groups, attacking from unexpected angles and disappearing before the aliens could respond. Junwoo's neural disruptor devices turned proud alien commanders into confused, helpless victims. By the end, 30 alien ships had been captured and the rest were fleeing toward the galactic core. But the most important victory was not military. During the battle, human broadcast teams led by Sojin transmitted live images to every world in the sector. Billions of aliens watched their supposedly invincible fleets being defeated by former slaves using improvised weapons and superior tactics. The psychological impact was devastating. For thousands of years, the galactic empires had maintained control through the belief that they were naturally superior to younger species. Now that myth was destroyed. If humans could defeat the crystalline hegemony's best fleet, what other inferior species might decide to rebel? On Earth, where the largest concentration of human slaves worked in massive industrial complexes, an old man named Sangwoo heard the news from hidden receivers. He had been a general before the aliens came, and he had spent 20 years planning for this moment. The children have grown strong, he said to his fellow resistance leaders. Now it is time for the parents to join the fight. The alien empires were beginning to realize their mistake, but it was too late. They had created the perfect conditions for human success by scattering Earth's people across the galaxy and forcing them to learn alien technology. Every human slave had become a potential soldier, every human worker had become a potential saboteur. The war was no longer about freeing a few mining platforms. It had become a revolution that would reshape the entire galaxy. 2 years had passed since the first collar broke on Kepler 442b. Admiral Minute stood on the bridge of his flagship, a massive Valdorian dreadnought that his people had captured and renamed Freedom's Dawn. Through the viewing windows, he could see a fleet of 300 human ships preparing for the journey to Earth. The Valdorian Empire was completely gone now. Their home worlds had surrendered after General Unseo's ground forces proved that humans could fight just as well on planets as they could in space. The purple-skinned aliens who had once treated humans like livestock now worked alongside them as equals, helping to build a better galaxy. But 3 alien empires still remained, and they had finally realized how dangerous the human rebellion had become. Emergency messages between their leaders spoke of the human plague and the animal uprising. They were planning something desperate. "Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from Earth," reported Communications Officer Eugen. She had grown from a simple intelligence gatherer into one of the rebellion's most trusted coordinators. Minute nodded. "Put it on the main screen." The image that appeared showed General Sangwoo, the old man who led Earth's underground resistance. His face was worn and tired, but his eyes burned with determination. Behind him, the ruins of Seoul stretched to the horizon, scarred by years of alien occupation. "Admiral Minute, we have received disturbing intelligence from our spy networks. The remaining 3 empires have formed an alliance. The crystalline hegemony, the Zephyrian Commonwealth, and the synthetic collective are combining their fleets for a massive attack on Earth." Minute felt his stomach turn cold. Earth was home to over 2 billion humans, most of them still wearing control collars and working as slaves. If the aliens decided to destroy the planet rather than lose it, the human species would be crippled forever. "How long do we have?" Minute asked. "Their combined fleet will reach Earth in 6 days. Over 8,000 warships, Admiral. It is the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. They believe that if they kill every human on Earth, the rebellion will collapse without leadership." Unseo stepped forward from her position at the tactical station. The former ground commander had proven brilliant at both planetary warfare and space strategy. "Admiral, our entire fleet numbers only 400 ships. Even with our technological advantages, those odds are impossible." But Minute was already thinking. The aliens were making the same mistake they had always made. They assumed humans would fight like aliens, with big fleets meeting in direct battle. They had never learned that humans were most dangerous when they were creative. General Sangwoo, what is the status of Earth's defenses? The old general's face hardened. We have been preparing for 20 years, Admiral. The aliens think Earth is helpless because they see only slaves and factories. They do not see the weapons we have hidden or the soldiers we have trained in secret. What kind of weapons? Junwoo's neural disruptor technology, scaled up to planetary size. Missile defense systems built inside mountains. And something special, we have turned their own orbital platforms against them. Junwoo himself appeared on the screen, looking tired but excited. Admiral, we have been infiltrating the alien defense satellites around Earth for months. When their fleet arrives, they will find that Earth's defenses are actually weapons pointed at them. The plan that emerged over the next few days was typically human in its complexity and audacity. While Minute-Ho's fleet would engage the alien armada in space, Earth's hidden defenses would activate simultaneously. But the real key was surprise. The aliens had to believe they were attacking a defenseless world until it was too late to retreat. Commander J. Minute, who led the rebellion's fighter squadrons, volunteered his pilots for the most dangerous part of the mission. We will hide our ships in the asteroid field near Mars. When the aliens pass us heading for Earth, we hit them from behind while they are focused on the planet. On Earth, millions of humans prepared for the battle of their lives. In-Ho, who commanded the planet's secret military forces, positioned his people in hidden bunkers and underground facilities. Factory workers who had been building alien machines for decades suddenly revealed weapons they had been constructing in secret. The alien fleet arrived exactly when intelligence had predicted. Admiral Zexcathan of the Crystalline Hegemony led the combined armada in his flagship Galaxy's Pride, a massive crystalline battleship that had never been defeated in combat. Begin the bombardment, he ordered his fleet commanders. Reduce the human homeworld to dust. Let this be a lesson to every species in the galaxy about the price of rebellion against their betters. The first alien missiles were already streaking toward Earth when In-Ho activated the planet's defenses. Suddenly, what looked like orbital mining platforms revealed themselves as massive weapons batteries. The aliens' own satellites turned their guns on the attacking fleet. And from hidden silos across Earth's surface, missiles powered by reverse-engineered alien technology rose to meet the invaders. Impossible. Zexcathan screamed as his sensors showed defensive fire coming from everywhere at once. The planet was supposed to be undefended. That was when Minute-Ho's fleet dropped out of hyperspace directly above the alien formation. 300 human ships, many of them upgraded alien vessels, opened fire at point-blank range. At the same moment, J-Minute's fighters swept in from the asteroid field, catching the aliens in a perfect trap. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships darted between massive alien dreadnoughts like angry wasps, using speed and maneuverability to avoid the aliens' heavy weapons. Junwoo's neural disruptors turned entire alien squadrons into floating wrecks as their crews collapsed at their controls. But the real shock came when the aliens realized that Earth itself was fighting back. Every factory, every mining station, every supposedly harmless human facility revealed hidden weapons and defensive systems. The livestock planet had become a fortress that the aliens could not break. Admiral Zexcathan's last transmission was a mixture of disbelief and terror. How did animals learn to fight like this? By the time the battle ended, 6,000 alien ships had been destroyed or captured. The remainder fled in panic toward the galactic rim, carrying news that would shake every remaining empire to its core. Earth was free, and humanity had proven they were no longer anyone's slaves. 5 years after the Great Battle at Earth, President M.I. Young stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Station, watching ships from a dozen different species dock at the massive spaceport. The station orbited a beautiful blue world that had once been a Valdorian prison planet. Now it was the diplomatic heart of the Human Federation. Through the transparent walls, she could see crystalline refugees working alongside human engineers to repair damaged vessels. Former Zephyrian soldiers were learning human farming techniques to feed their displaced families. Even some synthetic collective units had requested asylum after their empire collapsed into civil war. Madam President, called General Junwoo as he approached with a datapad in his hands. The former mining equipment repairman now oversaw the Federation's technology development programs. The last hegemony holdouts have agreed to surrender. Admiral Kethran wants to discuss terms. M.I. Young nodded. She remembered when surrender meant execution or slavery. The aliens had taught the galaxy that losing a war meant the end of everything. Humans were teaching a different lesson. Schedule a meeting for tomorrow. And Junwoo? Make sure Admiral Kethran understands that surrender means citizenship, not punishment. We are not building an empire like theirs. The Human Federation had grown to include over 3,000 star systems, but it was unlike any government the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of ruling through fear and force, it operated on principles that most alien species found completely alien: cooperation, voluntary membership, and equality under law. Sang-hee walked through the Integration Center on Level 7, where former alien overlords were learning what it meant to live as free citizens. The Valdorian who had once overseen human slaves on agricultural worlds was now studying to become a teacher. The crystalline admiral who had ordered the bombing of human colonies was working as a construction supervisor, helping to build schools for refugee children. How are the new arrivals adapting? Sang-hee asked Dr. Sojin, who had become the Federation's leading expert on interspecies psychology. Better than expected, Sojin replied, watching a group of young Zephyrians playing with human children in the recreation area. The hardest part is helping them understand that they will not be punished for what their empires did. Many of them expect slavery or execution. And instead we offer them jobs and citizenship. Yes, and it terrifies them more than death would. They do not understand mercy without weakness or strength without cruelty. It is taking time for them to learn that humans really mean what they say about equality. On Earth, the transformation was even more dramatic. The massive slave factories had been converted into manufacturing centers run by worker cooperatives. The prison camps had become research universities where humans and aliens studied together. Cities that had been bombed during the liberation were rebuilt with architecture that celebrated multiple species living in harmony. Former Admiral Minute-Ho, now serving as Earth's planetary coordinator, walked through the streets of New Seoul with visitors from the Outer Rim worlds. A synthetic unit named Logic 7 had traveled here to study human urban planning. A family of crystalline miners wanted to see how humans had turned their former oppressors' cities into something beautiful. This building was our central control facility, Logic 7 observed, pointing to a towering structure covered in gardens and solar panels. We used it to monitor slave productivity and suppress rebellion. Now it appears to be a library and cultural center. That is correct, Minute-Ho replied. We kept the building because it was well constructed, but we changed its purpose completely. Instead of controlling people's thoughts, it now helps them learn and grow. The crystalline child, whose name was Sharpsong, tugged at her parents' arm. Why did the humans not destroy it? When we conquered worlds, we always destroyed the old buildings to show our power. Minute-Ho knelt down to the child's level. Because destruction is easy, but building something better is hard work. We wanted to show that humans are good at hard work. In the Federation Council chambers, representatives from 6 to 7 different species were debating the colonization rights for newly discovered worlds. Under the old empires, such discussions would have been settled by whoever had the biggest fleet. Under human leadership, every species had an equal vote. Kyung-soo, who served as the Federation's first Secretary-General, watched the debate with satisfaction. The Zephyrian delegate was arguing passionately for environmental protection standards. The Valdorian representative was supporting funding for education programs. Former enemies were working together to solve problems instead of fighting over resources. The motion passes by a vote of 54 to 13, Kyung-soo announced. The new worlds will be developed according to the Environmental Protection Act, with 20% of all profits going to the Species Integration Fund. After the session ended, the crystalline delegate approached Kyung-soo privately. Secretary General, I must ask you something that troubles my people. Why do humans share power so freely? You won the war. You could rule as emperors like we did. Kyung-soo smiled. Because we learned something important during our years as slaves. Power shared is power multiplied. When everyone has a voice in decisions, better decisions get made. When everyone benefits from success, everyone works harder for success. That evening, Mi Young stood again on the observation deck of New Geneva Station. But this time she was not alone. Her daughter Ji-won played nearby with friends from 6 different species, speaking a mixture of human languages and alien dialects that had evolved naturally among the children. Mama, Ji-won called out, Teacher Logic 7 says that in the old days, different species always fought each other. Is that true? Yes, sweetheart. For thousands of years, the strong conquered the weak and treated them badly. But why? Do not they understand that working together is better than fighting? Mi Young looked out at the busy spaceport where former enemies were building a better future together. Ships departed carrying food to hungry worlds and medicine to the sick. Scientists from different species worked on projects to clean up planets damaged by war. Artists created new forms of beauty that combined traditions from across the galaxy. They understand now, she told her daughter. It just took them a long time to learn what humans discovered when we broke our chains. The great empires were gone, but something better had taken their place. A federation built on freedom, cooperation, and the radical idea that every thinking being deserved respect and opportunity. No empire had survived when humans lost their chains, including the empire that humans had chosen not to build.